Welcome to TLC for the Soul podcast, where soul meets spirit. You have entered into sacred space. I'm your host, TAMI Lynn Chambers, and I'm here to help you shine. Now let's get going on this podcast journey. Hello, friends. Hello, and welcome to Bringers of the Light Sunday. We have a very special show for you today because it's a show where you should be congratulating yourself for coming to the end of a very significant part of your journey. Before I go any further, I want to wrap us all in love light and light love, inviting in the guides who overlight TLC for the soul, Archangel Michael, Archangel Metatron, the Pleiadians. As we jump right in to talk about endings and new beginnings, it has been said by some folks that the beginning of 2024 really starts in May. And based on some of the things I'm hearing about the energy streams coming up for May, it does seem such that stuff will be able to start to move forward now. All the eclipses for the beginning of the year have occurred. Mercury retrograde has occurred. The big Jupiter and Uranus conjunction happened on the 20th. We're recording this on April 28th, right before Beltane and Samhain in the Southern Hemisphere, which as a witch's Sabbath, Samhain is always considered the end of a year and the end of a cycle, not really a year, but the end of a cycle, the beginning of a new cycle. Beltane then could maybe be considered the same thing as we wrap our dreams around the maple and keeping on. Why do we say things are ending? Well, we will share just a few examples, and then you might be starting to see something similar in your own life. The endings may not be as grandiose as you want them to be, but they're endings just the same and should be celebrated, the guides are saying. So I'm going to let them kind of drop in and channel in what they want you all to hear about here. But let's just start with the past week or so. And maybe things that I'll share a couple of things, and then maybe there's things that you might be seeing in your own world. Because sometimes I think my world's kind of small and boring. There's not a whole lot of people involved. There's, just my little work that I do here for you all and for myself. And, what could possibly be ending and falling away? Some of you may recall that about a week or so ago, we talked about the fact that the guide said, we're at Kilimanjaro Base Camp again. And I was like, what? And a couple of you contacted me and said, I'm gonna do this along with you. Well, when I went back and listened to, Kilimanjaro is like an experiential, and I am jumping right in, and I'm not saying like, welcome new people and hello, people have been here for a while and all that. We've had quite a few new people join, and I want to thank you so much for being here. And as always, my OG family that's been with me for quite some time. This channel's been around for quite some time now, 6 years. Over 600 shows now. Thank you for those of you that have been with me for many years. I always love that you come back and continue to play with us here, open up to the love and the guidance, and help add your own special energies to the mix of what is TLC for the soul. But I did go back over this last week and listen to all 3 of the Kilimanjaro experiential workshop that I did. Everything I talk about here, if you're new, Kilimanjaro is an ascension journey that I did 2 or 3 years ago. I did it in 2021. It's very profound, but you kind of have to be called to it. You kind of have to be brought there. It's like it doesn't just show up. you don't go to it and just decide to do it. It's kind of like somehow you're drawn to do it. But as it's a 3-part series, and the 3 parts of climbing Mount Kilimanjaro and the ascension journey only take a week of real 3D time. So when I listened to it last Sunday, I listened to what was called Base Camp, and I'm like, okay, I'm at Base Camp, and then Base Camp to Mid Camp, which is the midpoint of the journey, only went to like Wednesday, Thursday of last week, and then some. I remember going back, I listened to my mid-camp show, and I'm like, oh gosh, this is where weird stuff starts. Not weird stuff, but this is where some big lesson comes up to be learned and integrated. And I thought, well, nothing's really shown up yet. What could it be? And I do recall what I shared in the mid-camp video show about the lesson I had learned the first time I did it in 2021, which was more about like trusting my own inner guidance. And it was kind of a test of my courage and my perseverance and stuff to work with my guides, and trust that they were showing me the way, I needed to go. And it was actually a particular 3D situation that came up, and it played upon kind of one of my bigger fears at the time, which was fear of like being out in the heat, extreme heat. Well, this time Thursday kind of came, and I was like, well, this is weird. Nothing really's come up. Well, never say never. Friday morning, I go downstairs, and my dog is like limping all over the place. I'm like, what the heck's wrong with you? Like, she's not even using her front paw. And I'm like, my God. And I looked at her foot, and like one of her toes was like swollen to about 3 times its normal size. And I'm like, what the hell is this? She didn't want to, walk. She couldn't walk. She barely went outside and came inside. She just laid around looking at me. And I'm like, what is wrong with your foot? I kept asking my guides, like, what in the heck is this? And, they said, well, you can use healing hands. And I said, okay. So they showed me a protocol to do for her for rapid healing of what was going on. And I still didn't know what was going on. I'm like, well, what is this? And, part of it was like trusting. They kept saying like, trust the guidance that you're getting. And, it was a big trigger for me, because I was like, no, not another animal going down. She acted like she was like, really, something was really, really wrong. And I'm like, my God, what could it be? Was she bitten by, I've had animals bitten by like brown recluse spiders before. Every pet I've ever had has had the weirdest situations come up. And I'm like, oh my God, is it something weird? And I flashed back my mind to 2019 when I lost both of my dogs within 2 weeks of each other. And so I was like really kind of somewhat stressed out, but I wasn't super stressed out. So I felt like this ascension journey was also showing me where I had really grown from the past, since 2021 when I did the last one. And I did the healing protocol that my guides asked me to do on the dog, and it's a combination of, we call it healing hands, but there's some protocols we do, and there's some they just tell me like what to do, and it's certain types of light energy and light colors that are used for rapid healing of certain things. And we did the same thing with a live person who was really seriously hurt, and we kind of helped them do some rapid healing of their bone breaks and stuff. And so Friday, they had me do that, like late Friday, and I'm like, what in the world? And then when I woke up Saturday morning, I looked at the dog's foot, and what I couldn't see before, which was just this giant swollen toe, was now this big like oozing thing, like something, whatever energy work they had me do had that relieved whatever was happening in her foot. But I still didn't like the looks of it. And they kept telling me, you have to use your intuition and your intellect, and, sometimes things aren't always just solved in one particular way, right? And so I kept looking at the foot, and I'm like, no, this needs a vet. This needs a doctor to take a look at it too, not just energy work. And so I called my vet earlier Saturday morning, and I again was a big trigger, because I'm like, oh my God, I have to sedate my dog and muzzle her and all this, more triggers and more fears coming up. And I thought maybe they'll just prescribe me some antibiotics over the phone, because they know how hard it is for me to bring her in there. And I called them, and I said, I'll send you a picture of her foot and everything. And they called me back, and they're like, no, the vet wants to see the dog, because they're going to have to swipe they're going to have to put whatever's oozing out, they want it to go under a microscope and take a look at it. I'm like, great. So we did, I faced my challenges, and I wasn't like anxious the whole entire time. I was, remembering all my work that I do every day with Master Co, and, remembering I'm a spiritual being, I have a physical experience. I am the soul in control of my emotions, my mental body, my physical body. And so every time I started to feel anxious, I just remembered when you get nervous, focus on service. And so in between, taking care of the dogs, there's nothing I could do until the appointment. I actually recorded one of the best chapters, I think, of the Reiki and Rock audiobook that I've ever recorded, one of my favorite ones. Towards the end, it gets really emotional, and I recorded that yesterday and dropped it in. And then I did a couple other things, and we went to her appointment, and they did their little swab and took a look at it under a microscope. And apparently there's some bacteria around here because we live by the river that is toxic. And the vet said it starts like that, it looks like a big abscess, which is what the dog had on her foot. I didn't know. It was a big abscess that burst. And but they said the bacteria goes in, and then it goes straight to the lungs and kills the dog. So that's why they wanted to see her. And I'm like, oh, I'm glad we ruled that out. So she didn't have that. And we ended up getting our stuff and coming home. And now today we did one more. The guides asked me to do one more protocol on her for rapid healing to help her with pain and inflammation, because she didn't want to take the pain pills that they had prescribed for her. She's taking the antibiotics, but for whatever reason, the pain pills, she didn't want them. And then this morning we woke up and she was fine. The toe was still a little swollen, but she went on her regular walk up to the medicine wheel, back. She's been in and out of the house. Whereas for the past couple of days, she hadn't gone really anywhere. She didn't want to eat or drink anything. She's back to being like her old regular self. So I really feel like the guidance I got to do the healing protocol did help with the rapid healing of this incident, because it started Friday, and it's basically, granted, the toe has to still heal a little bit, still looks a little yucky, but the swelling is almost completely gone. She's up, she's moving around, she's her regular self again. So that was a huge initiation and test that was, quote unquote, magically completed today, which, based on the Kilimanjaro Ascension journey, today, Sunday, a week from the Sunday we started, is the time in that journey with the last show where we get to the top of the mountain, and we are celebrating because we have passed this test, this initiation, and we've had a rise in consciousness because of it. And maybe feeling tired, feel very tired and worn out today. It seemed like really nothing, but apparently energetically it was like a really big deal to pass this thing. So that's an ending. And then it's no coincidence that the Reiki and Rock audiobook ended today. We recorded the final chapters today. I don't know why I love that story so much. I just do. I think it's probably because it's the one I very first published. There's a lot of really good energy within it and around it, and good intentions. That ended today. And what you're going to find here, as we read the chapter of the Rose of San Juan Capistrano, which I channeled pretty much right before I recorded this show, which I'm recording in the afternoon, is I kept thinking, what's happening with this rose? Nothing's really happening here. And unbeknownst to me, I did feel it come in a little bit. I'm like, you're going to end this book today, aren't you? I just felt it. And I started getting the download of what the chapter was going to be about. And I'm like, this is the final chapter. I just feel it. And this is the final chapter today of the Rose of San Juan Capistrano. So loose ends are being tied up. Things are ending because something, somewhere, somehow, starting in May, starting next week, is this whole new beginning where you're going to be doing something completely different, maybe in a different way. Maybe the endings that are happening for you free you up to do something you've been wanting to do for a while. I'm still like, okay, nothing big seems to be happening here. Maybe it's all happening behind the scenes. I still don't know about it. I do feel like for me, starting next week, I'll have some new ways of working that I've been integrating since I've been recording the Reiki and Rock audiobook. some new ways of working that might help me a little bit more to become more consistent in my creations. But beyond that, I don't see that there's a whole lot of other 3D happenings, but maybe it is freeing me up. Maybe this, magical stuff that I've been wanting for so long, for freaking 4 years now, maybe it will start to come in the month of May, and maybe it's for these things are freeing me up. I'm freed up now, to take on something new, something exciting. Maybe it's something I've always been dreaming about. Who knows? I still don't know. But the energy is there to support those kind of things happening. The readings I watched, I was guided to watch this morning. What I heard kind of support that too. If you listen to anybody doing their forecast for the month of May, a lot of it is about new stuff coming in. I think we're just going to have to wait. The guides are saying you just have to wait and see, but they're saying we're saying that with like a twinkle in our eye, like you're just going to have to wait and see. So I want to read the final chapter of the Rose of San Juan Capistrano, and the energy of the chapter, as we always channel it in, is for the energy of the week ahead. So we're going to pull out any metaphor. So listen or with your master senses, like we always tell you. It can be just a fun story, but take into account anything that might stand out specifically for you, or how you're feeling, or what's going on in your world. As part of the end of this book, I will be uploading the final audiobook chapters for that one as well, probably tomorrow. And then I sit and go, okay, what's next? I had a new book want to come in yesterday. It sounds like I really love doing the Soulmates series books. They mean a lot to my heart. And if I'm recording another audiobook, I'm not sure if I'm going to drop and start doing another audiobook, which is the second in the Soulmate series, which continues the whole Reiki and Rock thing with bringing in some new people, or what I'm going to do quite yet. I think I have kind of like a little bit of, a day or so, a couple of days maybe to figure out like what I want to do next. So maybe that's happening for you as well. We've got Beltane to kind of prepare for here on the show. On Patreon, I feel like I've kind of neglected Patreon a little bit this past month or so, and so I want to get back in and make sure I'm really giving Patreon my true attention, like it deserves, and if not, then maybe we're putting Patreon on hold for a little bit. I don't know. I've got some decisions to make there on what I want to do. Mars is moving into Aries. I forgot about that. I'm just seeing a notification on my phone. Mars moves into Aries and Venus in Taurus. Yes, this is why everything has been moving forward. Okay, this is why things have been stagnant. I totally almost forgot. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Venus has been moving through Aries and is moving into Taurus. And I feel, Venus was like the divine feminine. The divine masculine has been stuck in Pisces for a while. Mars has been in Pisces for what seems like forever. I don't know how long it's been, but Mars has been playing this catch-up game with Venus and some of the other planets, Mercury, this whole Uranus conjunction thing. Mars has been the last one to enter Aries. Yes, I'm getting big chills. And so if you've been waiting to do something, because I see the divine masculine is more of like an active energy. The divine feminine is more of an allowing energy, more of an intuitive energy. The Mars energy, the divine masculine energy, is more of a, active, using your will to take action, more of a taking action energy. Even though you may have been taking action, I feel like it's like new, it's going to be new inspired action with Mars just entering into Aries, because Aries is the first sign of the zodiac wheel. And Mars has been finishing up some stuff in Pisces now. Like I said, it just seems like been forever that I've been hearing about this Mars in Pisces. I'm like, is he still there? And I keep thinking about, all the divine masculines that I know, and maybe they've been a little stuck too, like not being able to move forward, caught up in Mercury retrograde and going back and doing more soul work and facing more demons and all of this, that, and the other that we keep saying, like, round and round and round the mulberry bush. We keep doing this work. Mars is coming into Aries now. Mercury is, is coming out of its shadow period, and it really feels like May is this, all systems go. So if you're a divine masculine who feels like you've been a little stuck in the waiting game, in the waiting room, dealing with stuff you thought you'd already dealt with before, be it spiritually or otherwise, physically, maybe you had some physical things that came back up again, for you to deal with. Maybe, there were emotional or mental thoughts, things, people coming back around just to mess with you and keep you felt like they were obstacles to keep you from moving forward. But of course we know, right, they're always like blessings in disguise. But yeah, so Mars, that makes me feel a little bit better about this whole thing. All right, so let's go in and read the final chapter of the Rose of San Juan Capistrano. So when we left last time, we had Mr. S and management only with detonators, and they were setting off like C4 all over the place, and they'd even hired some kid to come in and go set off some more C4 bombs, and the Hidden Foot Tavern was being, rattled, and the people at the Whistling Gulch Spa were all freaking out because there's just bombs going off everywhere. And at the very end of the chapter, they said, Mr. S has been talking to Dark Orders, and he's bringing in dark plans, and he's going to take care of everything, and all plans are taking shape as expected. Management only sends a telepathic message to Mr. S. Tomorrow your wish will be granted. Mr. S is ripping C4 through all the forest of forbidden bears. Birds are flying off their nests and throwing out dead leaves around. Canton Kara in her fairy realm, had all those flashbacks of her past life on the CJX-47, and she had to jettison off a dying planet. And then at the very end, the bear people of the Forest of Forbidden Bears shivered but did not budge. The time had come to initiate their plan. And so we come to the final chapter of the Rose of San Juan Capistrano. Chapter 21, Don't Mess With Us. I love this. Helicopters sounded off in the distance as Rosalie and Calvin struggled to keep themselves upright as blast after blast licked through the forest of forbidden bears. The windows of Whistling Gulch Retreat rattled and cracked. Plaster fell from the walls, and Molly McBottoms, Catamancy, and Greer shivered inside the closet of the suite. Helicopters landed, surrounding the town, as Bringers of the Light Special Forces disembarked from the Whirlybirds. Management only was caught by surprise, holding a detonator and igniting one blast after another. Timbre, all my badasses come in too, it's so good. Timbre, with a special wand in hand, disintegrated the golem in one swoosh of the special wand. Jameson, who's her divine masculine, rounded up the hooded figure, that's the kid, with ease, as no young punk was a match for him. And Mr. S was quickly absconded by Dakar, who wielded a sword of light and nearly took the sprite's head off before Abigail, his divine counterpart, stepped in and took hold of his arm. Leniency, she reminded him, as he scowled at her. Just once he wanted a sprite's head as a souvenir. Who knew he collected sprites? Bringers of the Light celestial guards took hold of Mr. S and placed him in a special lockbox. His intel would be very useful to them. As the town started to recover from the blast, something rustled in the tree line. Bear person after bear person revealed themselves. The main bear person, Podco, went over to Dakar, and they shook hand to paw. Rosalie and Calvin both received a text on their phones to come downstairs, where they were greeted by High Corps. That's the Bringers of the Light HQ, that's the boss. They had never met anyone from Bringers of the Light before, having only just heard of them from Podco last night. High Corps introduced himself and asked the pair to return with him to Bringers of the Light HQ. He had a business proposition for them. Work with the Bringers of the Light as special agents for the Celestial Forces Division. Would they accept this proposal? Only time would tell. As for Greer, Molly McBottoms, and Catamancy, they were greeted by a very debonair but slightly cocky crow named Orion Ben. He showed them out to one of the helicopters and even helped them load the now very wilted Rose of San Juan Capistrano into it. Had the Rose even been able to make its debut and save the day? Some would say so, that this entire time, as the Rose exuded its special powers of strength, confidence, and courage, Rosalie, Calvin, the bears of the forest, and many others were helped by its secret magic. The reason the Rose seemed so drained of its power as it silently helped behind the scenes. As for the bear people, Podco, Rosalie, and Calvin, they had realized that night before that they were outnumbered in their quest for the peace and freedom they all so desired. The little beating heart had showed them just how much more things would need to change within everyone on the planet before love could prevail. And so, surrendering to a higher power, Podco had decided to call his contacts at Bringers of the Light HQ. Because for right now, what was needed was just a little more help from our friends. Oh, a Beatles song. Oh my God, you guys. Oh, okay. I mean, come on. I mean, all my badasses show up in one chapter. We have been working with the Bringers of Light for quite some time on Bringers of the Light Sundays. We've started with Abigail and Dakar. We've got episodes out there. We've got a whole short book with Tamber and Jameson. I mean, these are all my, people that have, or the Bringers of the Light that have been doing this work, my special agents that have been doing this work for quite some time. And to bring in new Bringers of the Light agents in Rosalie and Calvin, who I guess completed some sort of initiation by, by saying yes to this invitation to go to the Whistling Gulch retreat, doing what they could to help with the bear people and with Podco. They were willing to put themselves on the line to do whatever they needed to do to help until, the beating heart and everything that Mr. S and management only were doing just got a little bit, too much. And they realized like, we just can't do this by ourselves. It's such a metaphor. It's such a freaking metaphor. I mean, whether it's in your own personal life or, the freedom of humanity to overcome this, the darkness within, the demons within, as well as the demons without. We can't do it alone. It's impossible. I really feel like it's impossible to go on a spiritual journey without being plugged into your spiritual guides. It just doesn't make any, it just seems like it's not, you have to have one. You have to have them both. You just can't have one without the other. And I feel like it's going to be a very special week ahead of new beginnings. Rosalie and Calvin are getting a upgrade. They're going from when we very first met them back in the Rose of Santo Domingo. They were just hanging out in Tessalock, and they didn't know they were going to become Bringers of the Light agents. They were just doing their thing, and then fate brought them together. They met each other. And then I feel like this little book, Rose of San Juan Capistrano, was kind of like their initiation to their dual soul mission together, to work together to foil dark forces and whatever they're going to have them do. We don't even know what they're going to have them do yet. And then Greer and Catamancy and Molly McBottoms, where are they going? Are they going to go back to Rosalie and Calvin's? I guess they're going to go back to the little bungalow back in Tessalock. The Rose of San Juan Capistrano, we were expecting it to have this, big bang, like, wow, it's going to come out and do because it was a very active rose. The Rose of Santo Domingo in the very first book was a very active rose. It went out there, was exuding and poofing out its special strawberry scented and love vibes to bring Rosalie and Calvin together. And this Rose of San Juan Capistrano was a much more quiet, subdued, behind the scenes rose. But it didn't mean it wasn't doing anything. It was doing so much that it was getting like wilted and drained, as it was sharing its strength and its magic and its confidence with everyone around it, trying to help boost their energy and boost their power up. And I think that's a lot to what happens on this journey and moving forward. Every time you think something is, a coincidence or, like, oh, that happened just in the nick of time, I don't think we really realize and have enough gratitude for everything that happens behind the scenes, to our guides and celestial beings who make all this crazy stuff happen for us, like all these just quote unquote in the nick of time things that have happened for me, like even the past 2 or 3 days. Like, there is no way in heck that I could have orchestrated, putting into practice the ascension journey, the whole thing with the Kilimanjaro journey, and making the days of the journey that I did in 2021 match exactly to what was happening in my now reality, where the things that were happening now are playing out exactly as they were supposed to play out in the ascension journey back then. And then to have everything end today, I couldn't have planned it. I just couldn't have planned it. Something was pushing me to get these things done, pushing these things to happen, making these things occur for, everyone's benefit. Because it wasn't just my benefit with this whole dog situation. Like, my dog got a little bit more. I always told her, like, oh, we're in this together, girl, on this little adventure together. She's my familiar. I've been working with her 24/7 since she was a 6-week-old puppy or whatever that just used to fit in the palm of my hand. And I told her, we're in this together, so for her to be able to face her fear, it's a huge fear for her to go into the vet. She didn't. She did a really good job. And the vet was even like, oh, she's doing so much better. I'm like, yes, every time we come, we get better at this whole facing our fears. Because I don't like to take her there either. So many upgrades and things happen, and it's like, the guy just keeps saying, now you're ready to move forward. You thought you were ready, every time you think you're ready, like, I'm ready, bring it, all the times that we called for action earlier in the year, maybe you just couldn't take action, or maybe you took some action, but it wasn't the action you wanted to be taking or thought you should be taking, and now they're like, now you come to the next. Will it ever end? No. There's always going to be new cycles of like, okay, you're not ready to move forward. You have to do some stuff. You have to face some tests and trials, initiations, and then you're ready to move forward again, right? It's an ongoing throughout your life, because there was a couple of times during this past week where I was like, I don't like this. I'm tired of this ascension journey. I'm like, oh no, and I kept pushing myself. Like, I don't want to be the person that sidesteps or goes back down the mountain. I want to be the person that makes it to the top. I want to continue to grow and ascend and rise in consciousness and push myself as a spiritual warrior. I don't want to get complacent. I don't want that to happen. I want to keep growing and growing as much as I can. And so I pushed myself. This was a really big push, this one, to make it to the top, to the summit, and to come out on the other side of it, and to come out being proud of what I've accomplished here in this cycle. So if that happened for you, I know there was a few of you who are like, like I heard from you, or I didn't hear from you. There's a couple of people I reached out to, and they were like, this past month has been like, and I'm like, I know, but we're coming out of it now. So let's celebrate while we can, because who knows when the next, moment is going to come and we're back in some other weird cycle again. So let's celebrate these wins, celebrate all these wins, like, yay, we accomplished whatever it is. Yay, I'm so happy I dropped the final chapters of the audiobook, Reiki and Rock. Like I said, I love it so much. If you feel called to listen to it, give it a listen. It's a very big, heart-opening book. It definitely was that was definitely one of the intentions of that book as a healing tool. This one, The Rose of San Juan Capistrano, as we've been on this journey with this rose, it has been a journey with this audiobook, and I don't know how long we've been doing. I think we've been working on this particular book since the beginning of the year, and this rose was a rose of strength, confidence, and courage. And I would have to say that has definitely increased and gotten stronger. My strength, confidence, and courage since the beginning of the year to now, that those are areas where I feel I've really grown. My physical strength, especially mental strength, most definitely. Emotional strength, yes, all of those areas, which has helped me gain more confidence in myself as a whole in this terms of like being this physical avatar. So take a few days to regroup, pat yourself on the back, congratulate yourself for whatever it was for you, because it's going to be different for everybody, whatever this whole past thing has been for you, because everybody coming out of this, I just hear from people and everybody's just like, oh my God, it was really arduous. We come into the year, at the beginning of the year, with such high hopes. And this was really a tough one to go from January to May and come in just thinking like, oh, I'm getting off to this good start, and realizing you have 4 months of deep soul work and integration and upgrades before you could even get going on what you wanted to get going on this year. I mean, you really have to pat yourself on the back as a spiritual warrior, because I really do. I feel like this is why we can't always see that far ahead, right? The guides did not want to show us that far. Certain. They didn't want us doing certain premonitory shows for you guys and divinatory stuff until the eclipses and all this stuff had happened. They didn't want me looking ahead towards the middle of the year, the end of the year, or the whole year. They told me that things were going to change drastically after these eclipses happened, and they wanted me to wait to do any of that type of outwardly looking stuff for us. And so I waited and was just doing the work along with you, and I was like, how long is this going to last? And when I heard May back earlier in the beginning, towards the beginning of the year, I was a little disheartened, like, oh my God, I'm going to go through another year. It's going to be too late again for what I want. I just kept saying it's going to be too late again for what I want to manifest, because you're just taking too long. And we just kept hearing the whole time, have trust in the process, have trust in the process, have trust in the process. And somehow really still, we just really have to have control. We have to release control and have trust in the process. And know that, like these last 2 little paragraphs say, surrendering to a higher power. Right now, what we need is just a little more help from our friends. We've got to just continue to surrender, continue to work with our guides and our higher selves, continue to trust that what you want, what you seek is seeking you, and that these big new beginnings are going to start popping off now. So you can take flight. All right. That is all that they want me to share with you today. It seemed like we were only talking for a few minutes, but we've been talking for 37 minutes. So I want to thank you all so much for joining me here, and we will see what comes next. See you soon. Take care.
This episode was brought to you by Tessa Locke's very own The Fish Store, fish and chips for the eclectic. Come on in and pick up our famous order number 5, the Tor Tower, and you'll be delivered a steaming pile of crackling, crunchy fish and chips. Welcome for dinner, lunch, or anything in between. The Fish Store for the eclectic.